So welcome today. I am here live at Dharma Center, recently returned from Japan, and I have a little slideshow for you guys to watch as we discuss places of power. So you can enjoy the slideshow. I didn't have time to put all my pictures up, but you can see some of them, which I'm not going to talk about specifically because today's topic is places of power. And we find places of power everywhere. They're often in urban areas, like Dharma Center is a place of power. We sit right on a power line, which is one of the reasons why we've been here for so long, is because this power line has fed us, and then we've used this place only for meditation, and in turn that feeds the power line. And for those of you that have come and sat here in meditation, most people find it very easy to meditate here. That is one of the advantages of a place of power, is it's easier to tap into different dimensions. When we're just in a ordinary place, let's say, we often feel all the impressions that were left there by all the people that have ever been there. And it kind of just stacks up, one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And so an area can start to feel very heavy and thick. So we have practices that we do to clear the energy out and purify the space. One of the simplest ways we do that is simply by meditating in a space. Another way is we can intentionally use our body and words and mind to gather up our subtle energy and use that to actually push the energy out of a space and replace it with purity. So I had, that's another class, but that's a practice that I recommend that you do in your own home, and the places that you frequent. I do it even here sometimes, just to freshen up the energy. But what is a place of power? As I said, it's a place where it's easier to access different dimensions, different layers of existence. And they tend to fall on different power lines. So if you think of how the body is situated, we have these different meridians that run through us. The most popular one is the Sushumna, the energy tube that goes up our spine, that we learn about because we focus on chakras, and the 7 main chakras sit on the Sushumna. So within us are power spots, the chakras, where the energy lines of our being come together and form these access points. So if we focus on the navel center, that's our center of power, and we can open up different dimensions of power. So we're walking power spots. In other words, we can focus on our heart and access dimensions of creativity and compassion. We can focus on our third eye and open up dimensions of innovation, new ways of seeing. So this is happening within our body, but the earth itself also has these different lines of energy, lines of power running through it. And at different places, these lines come together and they form access points. So Kyoto, Japan, where I just was, that is a huge power spot. It's been a center of spiritual discovery and exploration for thousands and thousands of years. So there's always the chicken or the egg argument, right? Was it always like that? Or did it become like that because people said, oh, this is a quiet place away from the city. Let me come here and meditate. And then it becomes a power spot. So I don't know. Maybe somebody does, but I don't know. There was a story of one place that we went to called Kurama, Mount Kurama, some trees from Mount Kurama, that a being came to that area. This is Koya right now, so those trees are actually in Koya-san. But anyway, so this being came to Mount Kurama, and they say that's why it's a power spot, because these three beings, all were there and they taught, and different dimensions opened. One of them that I was told was this really cool spot, with the tree roots all growing on top of the land. And I was told that was the actual birthplace of Reiki. Like somebody was meditating there and a dimension opened up in that power spot. And that meditator was shown how the energy of Reiki works and how you can use it for healing. So this is the magic of power spots. So again, they're everywhere. We can find them in the most seemingly ordinary places. Oh, this is where I was talking about these trees here. This is the birthplace of Reiki. So when we go to these places, if we have some ability to concentrate, we can focus and open up different parts of our being, and at the same time open up different parts, different dimensions that are available in that power spot, and it amplifies everything. And all of a sudden we have this whole new ability to access different dimensions. So if I back up a little bit, power means the ability to perceive. And I think a lot of people miss that definition. Power is the ability to perceive. We think at least in Western culture, we've been raised with this idea of power means strength and force and being able to exert your will upon others. And we think that's power. We think power means that we can dominate. And that's not technically true. Power is really simply the ability to perceive. Because when we can perceive something, then we have options and we can move in such a way that we're able to accomplish our aims. Where if we don't have that ability to perceive, even if we're really, really strong, and maybe we have a tank and we can, we want to go across town, we can just start driving, but we're blind, we can't see. And eventually we're going to hit obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Maybe we'll fall and, get caught in a canyon, because even a tank can get stuck in a canyon. And then now we're in a canyon on a rock. And even though we have this giant piece of machinery, we're stuck. So power isn't just about having strength and the ability to force our will. Power really comes from this ability to perceive. So this is our actual interest in power spots. This is why we take time out of our lives to go visit these places, because they open us to these other dimensions, these other ways of seeing. So I'm still unpacking everything that I received in Japan. It's like it still hasn't like all come into focus, like that very out of focus picture that was just on the screen. And it's an important part of our practice, this visiting power places, because as I said, it opens us to different dimensions that we otherwise wouldn't have access to. Now, there's a part of us, as you know, feels. It's not, I'm not talking about emotionally feeling, just that ability to sense that, oh, there's something there. There's something. There's this part of us that feels when there's an opening. We just know, like, oh, there's something there. I can't tell you what it is. I just know if I go there, there's something for me. That is that sensation, that experience is a power spot speaking to you. So pay attention to that as you're living your life, as you're out in your ordinary world, just walking around. You might be, driving along, and then all of a sudden this very quiet, very gentle tug at your attention. Don't just blow that off. That's power speaking to you. That's power saying, hey, come look. I've got something to show you. So we have a trip coming up in June where some students are going to go find power spots. So one of the ways that we can do this is we get a map and we just start gazing at it with a very quiet mind, and we just gaze and let your attention rest on different areas of the map and notice where you keep getting pulled back to. And look at that, and then look at it closely and sit and contemplate it and allow yourself to feel into that place. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, another meditation master, while I was in Japan, and we were talking about the different ways of projecting to a power spot. The way it's been described by my teacher and other teachers is one of the terminologies they use is throwing a double. So you take your double, your subtle body, and then you just throw it to that power spot, and then you're there. And while I've managed to do this, it's very unnatural to me, let me say. But what I noticed, or what I've noticed over the years, and something that came in very, very clear when we were in Koyasan, and it was the place where Kukai, who was the original master of Shingon Buddhism, and it's rumored that that was actually Rama. Just a rumor, I have no proof. But I definitely had a very clear past life memory of sitting, even though we couldn't go to the place where he would meditate, it was all blocked off. We could look at it. It was like probably, 100 yards away. And I have very clear past life memory of sitting with him and other students in that place. We give Dharma talks and we would sit and meditate. And as I looked at the experience, I was like, oh, interesting. It wasn't that I transported myself to that place. That place came to me. And I was in that place. So my current surroundings were gone, and now I was in that place. And that's how I've experienced that before. Like I remember years and years ago, we were at a Rama birthday event and Bodhi was playing Zazen music. And all of a sudden, Font's Point appeared in my consciousness. and we're like probably 20 miles away from Fawns Point. We were at a hotel, and Fawns Point is like way over there. So as the crow flies, probably 20 miles, maybe less. I have no idea how far. But anyways, we're sitting in meditation, and then suddenly I am sitting on Fawns Point. And, you know, all the people that I was sitting with were there with me on Fawns Point, and we're all sitting there. Like, oh, that's interesting, huh? We're at Fawns Point. And then after the concert, a bunch of people were all saying, hey, we're gonna go to Fawns Point. And I'm like, I already was. I'm like, you are too, but okay, you need to go have the physical experience, go do it. So my point is, we experience and interact with power spots differently. So just if you read a description, or even if you're listening to me talk about how I experience power spots, don't assume that is how you will experience and interact with power spots. It's an individual connection that we have. It's an individual experience. So pay attention to that very quiet part of your being. And when we connect with a power spot, there is this expansion of perception. Sometimes we feel really good, like just we feel the energy flow through us, and we feel very energized and we feel very bright. Other times it's just very quiet, and we have this very intense, deep knowing. Now, sometimes there are power objects that can connect us to something. Like you may have noticed in some of the pictures that I was dressed in kimono at some point. And that was a very intense experience for me, because I did not want to do it at all. Didn't want to do it. But when I landed in Japan, I had these very intense past life memories. A couple weren't really a big deal. Like I remember being a fisherman, I remember working in rice paddies, and then I got hit with the memory of learning to be a geisha. So I never graduated to full geisha. It was, and I actually studied with Bhavna. Bhavna was my geisha teacher. And she was training me. And it was in ancient, I don't know what year, but it was long time ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it was an honor to be accepted into the guild. And it was a commitment. And I couldn't hack it. I was like, nope, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. And so I wound up bailing. I left, and which created difficulty for Bhavna, so I'm sorry. And then the rest of that life for me was really hard, because I had broken my word, which is, you know, like spitting in the face of everyone that you meet. If they know that you've broken your word, it's like you're a horrible person, and you deserve no pity. And then I was also female, so I had no resources, nothing, and I wound up having a very hard life. And eventually I found my way to the Dharma, and that helped, but it was still just this very traumatic lifetime. And so when some of the others we were with were like, we should do kimono, we should all dress in kimono and then go have tea and then go to the temple. And I was like, oh, I don't want to, I really don't want to, I don't want to. And the woman that was telling me about it was really excited. And she was like, I really want to. That's the one thing I really want to do. And so I was like, okay, for you, I will do it for you. And then the next day I get, you know, we're text messaging, and she's like, oh, I have to cancel. I can't make it. I have to work. And I'm like, okay, fine. We don't need to do it. I'm good with not doing it. And then a half hour later, she texts me, oh, well, we tried to cancel, but there's going to be a cancellation fee. So you'll have to pay because we couldn't cancel your reservations. And then there was confusion because there were other people that wanted to do it that at one point in our messaging, she said there wasn't enough reservations for everybody. And so I thought, oh, good, I'm off the hook. Yes, give my reservation to them. And then it was, oh, no, we couldn't cancel. So you need to pay this, cancellation fee. And it's going to be a whole thing. And it's like, well, how do I pay the cancellation fee? So we wound up doing kimono anyways. So even though the woman that really, really wanted to do it couldn't make it, there was another group of us that did. And it was such an interesting experience going in there because those kimonos became objects of power for me because it forced me to really connect with that past life and process and forgive myself for all the harm that I caused, for all the trauma that I went through. I had to acknowledge and accept and let that energy move through me. And initially, whereas they're picking out different kimonos, there was the really cheap ones that I didn't like, and then there was the one step up, and we found one that had it looked like cats in space. It had cats on it with little planets. And I almost got that one. But the more those past life memories came back to me, it was like, okay, yeah, that's just making a mockery of the whole thing. It's like you need to take this seriously. And so I found one that was way more than I wanted to spend for rental. But it was the one I had. It was beautiful. And so I got that one. I decided, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take it seriously, which is something I recommend. If you run into a power object that sparks these past life memories that you didn't have the opportunity to process and meet, so you can actually reclaim that energy and let go of that past self that you no longer need, take it seriously. My tendency is to kind of joke things, make fun of things and make it funny. So instead I said, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to do it. And then as they're dressing me, because you can't put a kimono on yourself, they have like all these strings that they tying it tighter. And I'm like, I can't breathe. It's like making her loosen it. And she did a little tiny bit. And then another one, I'm like, now loosen it. Because they're doing towels and they have a hard thing that goes in your back. And then the final one is I put the kimono on you, and then she cinches it really tight, and I'm like, no, you have to loosen. She's like, I can't, the kimono will fall down. Tights it. And that's when it like really hit me, that past life memory of being like, no, you have to have this tight structure fitted around you. And then just trying to walk and sit. We had tea, we went to we took the bus. So all of us were on the bus in the kimonos. And then we went to this beautiful estate where they served us tea, but the tea was all on the floor. So then trying to figure out how to sit on the kimono because I can't sit cross-legged because then the kimono opens. And then, I have issues trying to kneel, so I'm trying to find ways to sit. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the other part I hated. And then remembering how I'd have to sleep on a block because as a novice, you have to use your real hair and they would do your hair. Somebody would come and spend hours making your hair perfect. But then you only get that done like once a month. So then you have to lay on a block to sleep perfectly still, like on a block, because you can't like roll around, mess up your hair. So it was, like I said, very fascinating to have this power object that allowed me to go through that whole past life and release it. So now I don't think I'll ever wear kimono again. I don't feel the need to do that to myself. But in the end, I'm glad that it worked out the way it did, and that I did have that opportunity to move through that, because as I said, that kimono became an object of power, a place of power, that I was then able to open those dimensions, pull back the energy from that past life, and release everything I no longer need. There's my lovely kimono with the little shoes with the funny socks. I like the guy kimonos better. I probably should have rented one of those. But it was a amazing experience all around, and I highly recommend that you take time to go to power places. Now, there is one small word of caution when you go to power places. They, as I said, open up different dimensions, right? We allow us to perceive into different areas. Sometimes, well, oftentimes, there is what I call a high line and a low line. So everything in the universe exists in pairs. It's all complementary. So there'll be a place within an area of power where you're able to tap into very high, beautiful states of attention. There will also be places where you can tap into very dark, low states of attention. And sometimes they're right next to each other. So if you are at a place of power and you suddenly start to feel heavy and drained and tired, or maybe your back aches, maybe you start to get cranky, you're just annoyed, take a couple steps in either direction. Whatever you do, don't stay standing on that spot. Let yourself move to a different spot, and then pay attention, keep checking in, like, okay, do I still feel annoyed and heavy and cranky? Have I shifted out of it? Like I said, sometimes it's just a matter of changing seats. Sometimes when we go out to the desert, we'll sit, and I've seen it happen where somebody will sit down, and then all of a sudden they're coughing, and they're having to clear their throat constantly, and they're just very uncomfortable. And it's like, and everybody else in the circle's fine. Like, okay, you get up and move 5 steps to the left or to the right. And they do, and then they're fine. And it's simply because these inverses exist. Any place that you go to that has power will have somewhere nearby the opposite. It doesn't make that a bad place and the high space, a good space. It's just balance. And if we're aware and we know what's going on, then it's not a problem. But we can make it a problem by ignoring it. And then we can wind up opening up doors to very dark places. And I've seen it happen because people, they open up these doors, and then they want everybody else to see it because they want that validation. I'm like, hey, I opened up this really scary, weird place. Come look. So don't do that to your Sangha mates. Instead, you close the door and stop looking at it, and then move yourself out of that area. And like I said, it doesn't have to be far. Sometimes it's just a few steps. And then you can say, hey, that felt really weird. Somebody tell me a joke. And then that laughter can help break that hold that your mind, then goes to, because it will keep wanting to figure it out. Be like, well, what's that about? What was that? Do I need to protect myself? So there's this whole survival instinct that kicks in. So You don't need to share what you found on the other side of the door with everybody, but again, don't keep it to yourself in terms of pretending, oh, it's all good. It's enough to say, oh, that felt really weird to me over there. So I'm going to move over here. And if you're having trouble letting go, then either telling a joke or having somebody tell you a joke is a great way to snap that energy line that you have connected with. And then that opens you up to the real purpose of being in a place of power, which is to connect to these beautiful high dimensions that allow us to expand our awareness and become free.